I'm a computer scientist, so I love talking about developing software. And I want to share some lessons learned on how to do that well with pharma. But actually, I'm going to build a little bit on something that you said, Jamina. Um, it is always crucial to figure out fast, are you developing a drug product that actually solves a real world need? So what if you could actually predict that? What if you could actually predict the validity or the appropriateness of clinical endpoints up front? That's one of the use cases that we set ourselves. And what we do as a company is basically patient understanding based on unstructured patient experience data. So we pull data from social sources, from closed communities, really anything in 26 different languages around the world to capture what we like to refer to as kind of the global experience of how people are living day by day with different disease areas. And what we launched this year is Patient GPT. So this is actually a large language model. It's not a new foundational model, but it's tuned with 50 million patient experience data points that we already had analyzed using a supervised AI framework that we have built for the past 8 years, so that even if it's completely unstructured, we can actually produce variables that are already known, that are already in use to describe the population, to slice and dice that in every which way, to detect disease burdens, measure the impact that these have on quality of life, and factor in how treatment benefits or drawbacks actually impact that. So do they actually have a benefit long-term for patients according to patients or not? And I think what is particularly what GenAI is doing, part of that is not even focused on what it produces. It is quite exciting to think about that suddenly we bridge the gap from you have unstructured raw data, you can understand this better, describe this better, and you can even generate assets directly basically in one process. It's never been possible before in such scale for such a variety of use cases. So that in itself is incredibly exciting. But to me, what's even more profound is the ease of interaction. And this has been brought up before. This is really, to me, the groundbreaking innovation here, that suddenly people that have never worked with AI can get themselves to a point within a day that they wield such incredible technology with such ease, with such speed. And I think this will continue to have a profound impact on any company, on any institution, really, that is sitting already on valuable data. And now they have an opportunity to really increase their user base to people that would have never historically or traditionally been users or viable users for any AI tool. So use cases that we cover are, for example, as I said, clinical endpoint validation, or creating observational patient experience studies, all the way to AI, and this is kind of still future work, but AI-assisted creation of entire patient journeys, but then based on 3 million experience statements. So starting to become statistically relevant to the population that is actually experiencing going through a disease journey. And how did we develop this, and how did we launch it so well? So even though GenAI is incredibly exciting, it's also still in its infancy, and there is no shortage of new innovation projects that are trying to use GenAI in some interesting way, only to be abolished a day later, basically. Whenever, and this happens whenever a new technology hits a field, there's a flurry of new activity, and few people ever start with the real user or customer experience. But that's regardless of technology. You should always do that, exactly. Otherwise, you're building something because it's neat technology, and then you've tried to figure out how to sell this and how to make people use that later on, which is almost kind of an anti-pattern. So the way we did this is we always try to work with well-informed champions. So people that are deeply embedded in the industry, but are somewhat adjacent in their personality to the field where they're working. For example, creative thinkers that are deeply embedded in the clinical trial execution. Usually people you meet there are very, very focused on process, very very unlikely to say yes to innovation. But if you find someone in such a space that is a creative thinker, that is willing to go beyond, that's a great person to talk to. And with such champions, it's important to keep in mind, especially in pharmaceuticals, I think, you're dealing with such a complex value chain. You need to keep in mind that you're not selling to your users. The people that buy your applications are not the ones that will use its value. And the ones that use its value are also not the ones that will connect this value and how they used it to a top or bottom line difference, to a risk reduction on R&D, or an increase in market share in an existing drug product. So you have to, anyone who builds software solutions in such a complex space, unless it's a very, very, very specific thing and you're making something better or faster that's already existing, then you need to figure out and find people that are willing to help you with this. Figure out, how does this value chain actually look like? And a good strong champion is always a good place to start with that. This also then, to your question, Ingrid, this makes for good launches. If you figure it out well, what are the building blocks I need for a successful launch? You probably also figured out what is my value chain and what is the one solution that delivers my value in these 4 different ways, from user to buyer to creator of value to transfer of value. That's really the lock and key to success in my mind for really new software applications in such complex industries.
Thank you so much. Great.
Yeah, the question you asked is which trends will prevail, and I think the questions would be easier if we were asked which ones won't continue. There's so many interesting aspects. And Daniel, actually, I want to say I really love your product, because I think that individual data literacy and data control are one of the huge societal challenges and what's really wrong with healthcare worldwide. So I really like what you're building. How are you doing this? And Heather, same thing. The informed, the empowered patient, or in this case, data subject. That's if you combine these things, that's probably the most impactful change on the horizon. I couldn't agree more. But I also I'm a bit pragmatic here and a bit practical, perhaps. I'm not sure if this will be. It will happen this fast. The FDA still argues that you need, or already argues that you need a clearly defined data collection, analysis, and management approach if you want to develop certain instruments that use data to detect or predict, detect symptoms, diseases, predict pathway, suitable treatment pathways, and so forth. But they frequently also fall short of explaining specifically how this should be done. And so what's the next step? Then it is on someone who actually provides services or instruments like this to figure out something new, but also at the same time converse with pharmaceutical companies and explain, how could this actually be brought into the market? A pharma company will say, well, if the authority doesn't tell us in which way it will be used, then we're not really, we are uncertain how it will be used and should be used. So frequently, it feels like we run into a stalemate. So my hope is that the fact that we're pushing this on so many different levels now, on data literacy, on individuals that own and can actually feel and have impact through their own data, and at the same time such amazing advancements in technology, not using the A word. My hope is that while doing this at the same time just leads us to create almost like something like a nexus event, a breakthrough event. Now we have this access of data. Patients actually know, because right now most people that I can talk to, if I would ask them, would you share your data? The answer is always yes. How? How can I actually collect my data? How can I put this into something? And how can I actually give this to anyone who asks? And then the next question is, should this be monetized in some way? Should patients have other benefits from that if they offer their data willingly? So that there rarely should ever be or is a free lunch. but my hope is that this is actually this happens before more such applications are developed, because if that actually happens, if we can if we are able to advance it to this level of clarity, once that's solved, I think patients will see a huge value development, early detection, better monitoring, empathetic therapies. And this is my hope for the year. It's not a clear tech prediction, but as I said, I like to look at problems, and this in my mind is one of the biggest ones to solve. How can we get to a point where really on a global or a societal scale, we have cleaned up these issues, this homework, and then